So I was playing a one-on-one session with this dungeon master, let's call him Jack, and he did something that I have never seen before or ever since. In this encounter, I was playing an Air Genasi archer. Since it was the two of us at the table, he put in a DMPC to join me. We then encountered a group of half-dragons. I used levitate on myself to get out of range so I could pick them off with arrows. His human fighter DMPC was pretty much just trying to solo all the half-dragons. Then the breath weapons came into play. Each half-dragon got like 5 breath weapon attacks throughout the combat, each one directed at DMPC. By the end of it, DMPC is ash, half-dragons are dead and riddled with arrows, and I floated away to escape from the likely death trap the rest of the dungeon would be. At the end of it, I had to ask, hey, how did they have so many breath weapons? It's in the stat block. It is? Yeah, look. Pulls out the monster manual and points to the half-dragon page. You have to roll for that. What? Our homes lie in flames. Our party in ruin. The dragon's power is nigh unlimited. How is this possible? That doesn't look really important. I then went on to explain how the recharge mechanic works, even get some rando from another table to confirm it. Jack then realized he killed his own DMPC with his own incompetence. He then told me I got no experience or anything from the session out of spite. Looking back, I remember this guy being a real piece of work, and I can tell you more about him if you're interested. Just want to share the story and see what you think. I think this guy is a little ungrateful. I mean, seriously, you're helping him out. And what does he do? He decides to take away your experience. God, can't have crap at local game stores. Bad DMing is where backstories go to die. Back in late 2019, a friend had told me a bunch of stuff over dinner one night about Dungeons & Dragons world he was building. The more we talked about how hypothetically we would play this D&D game, the more I got really excited to jump into that world. I actually sent you an email horror story once regarding a player at the same table, at which we often change characters and/or campaigns. In this case, the problem was with my first character for this group, and the Dungeon Master. During discussions about characters and the champagne's... I'm going bar hopping with a friend later. You can tell where my mind is going. Anyway, I told the Dungeon Master that I wanted to bring my childhood first ever OC into Dungeons & Dragons, play her and flesh her out beyond what I made as a kid. He agreed, so I said my character was from a small fishing village of elves, and asked if there was a town like that in his world. He said there could be, but gave me no details on this town and opted to let me name it, so I did. I made my OC into a 4 elements monk for her D&D 5e conversion, because it best fit the abilities I imagined for her. Don't knock me, I know the 4 elements monk reputation, but hey, Water Whip is cool. What's the reputation?
Which means that I have to give this a D ranking.
Oh.
The way of the 4 elements monk is a humanoid pile of weak sauce.
Oh! So they're like the true strike of specs? Cool. I explained that she was only a monk mechanically, and that flavor-wise, she was a self-taught fighter because her father, a widower, was a blacksmith. My monk had spent long and lonely days playing around with the simple weapons and tools her dad crafted. Her mother had died in childbirth, which made my monk a bad omen, and so generally other people in her village kept away from her, which meant she had a lot of free time and not many friends. The upside, however, would be that she had a close relationship with her dad. The Dungeon Master agreed to all of this without much feedback.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively
Wait. Side note, is this the James Somerton guy that no one can shut up about? Because he doesn't look like him, but everyone says it's him. I'm confused. Now, to get Monk to leave her village, my childhood self had originally followed extremely edgy tropes and killed off her father via brutal murder, making revenge her primary motivation. But I told the Dungeon Master as an adult that I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to have both parents be dead. And instead, could also be something like her dad is kidnapped, or that the village had been raided, rather than it being a targeted murder, making the motivations more complex, i.e. save him, solve the mystery, etc. And the Dungeon Master said he could work with this. Come game time, if I remember correctly, we started at level 2, and we all seemed well enough. I remember feeling like the world was a bit too sandboxy, and like I wasn't sure why my character would be with the rest of the party, but being low level, there's time to fix that, I thought. Sadly, though, the game lacked clear direction. We completed some missions that felt like basic unlinked bounties, and in one session, the Dungeon Master says that my character would have known something from her time at the monastery. I tried to speak up and say that she wasn't that kind of monk. He argued that she had spent some time there to be a monk. She had to, and he hand-waved that she could have been taken in for a short time by the people at the monastery on her long travel across the region from her village. Basically, the monastery was in the middle. I begrudgingly agreed and wished he had just said something beforehand. Hey, DM, have any notes on my small-town farm girl looking to defend her father and her village? You know, that character? Any thoughts, criticisms? Oh yeah, no notes. You did a really good job writing the character. I got nothing to say. I think she's pretty much just ready to go. Awesome. I am ready for some adventuring.
1 hour later.
Hey Monk, I left you some things on your character sheet. DM? Huh? Did you find it? Yeah, what is this? Because it looks like a note. Yeah, that's what it is. I thought you said no notes. Well, I had a few ideas. Okay, why didn't you tell me? What's it even say? Oh, well, it's nothing major. It's just, instead of being trained by your father, like your backstory says, instead you are now trained by a highly secretive organization of monks hiding in a monastery deep in the mountains. Also, you have some long-lost family, and I've connected your backstory to some other threads in the campaign without asking you. You know, just small things like that. You're describing like a whole different character. I mean, how many notes did you use? Well, all of them. What do you mean all of them? All of them! Later on, when an overarching story finally began to appear, the Dungeon Master introduced us to a powerful NPC who had heard about our deeds and described my character being shocked because she looks exactly like your mother. I had to correct her and say that Monk never knew her mother. Her mother is dead in childbirth. This created debate at the table yet again. We came to a compromise that Monk may have seen portraits of her, and being an elf, may have dreamt of her during trances. So, knowing what her mother looked like, okay, we just played out this encounter. It was then revealed that this high-powered NPC giving us the quest was my monk's aunt. I wholeheartedly believe the original plan was for it to be her mom, mysteriously returned though. This aunt now, even though she knew of Monk's existence, never came to check on her or visit. She's distinctly not upset about her sister's death or about anything though. It turns out that the aunt is royalty, making my monk some kind of long-lost princess. I wanted to roll my eyes so hard. I was trying to unmarry Sue, a beloved childhood character, not make it worse. She's a lonely girl from a small village raised by a simple man who's a single father. Definitely not nobility. I honestly wanted it to stay that way, but nope. 'Cause plot. From then on, anytime we needed a leg up in the city, all I had to do was flex my monk's lineage. She had no reference for etiquette, no knowledge of her noble roots, but it didn't matter. It was like Deus Ex Machina bloodline. Whatever the party needed, we could get it by either telling people who she was, or by them just recognizing her immediately regardless. Alright, that guard is not going to let us through so easy. Alright, so here's my plan. I'm going to cast Enhance Ability. Then, the bard is going to try to charm the guard. If that doesn't work, we can then use Pass Without Trace to maybe sneak across the rooftops. Or maybe if it comes to a fight, we can... Hi, I'm Princess something or other, daughter of something something or other. Let me in. Of course, my lady, please. We are all at your disposal. What? Yeah, I'm a princess of the realm. They're duty-bound to do whatever I say. Doesn't that kind of invalidate, like, everything? Uh-huh, I know. Milady, you seem upset. Would you like me to wash your boots, perhaps? Oh, shut up! If I had known better, and the DM spouse wasn't also a part of the table, I would have thought this was a failed attempt at favoritism, but it really just felt like railroading. I played my monk as curious, but ultimately distrustful of the aunt, asking her questions like, why did you stay away? And do you know something about what happened to my father? And it seemed like the Dungeon Master had something going on there at least. It was explained that Monk's mother married below her station by running away with the blacksmith against the family's wishes, and she was not welcome back home. The disgrace is partially why my aunt would not come visit even after the mother's death, because it would mean seeing the father, etc. In order to overcome Monk's distrust, the aunt eventually leveraged the father's death/disappearance. It was presented as a hook to get us to do a quest, because that quest would supposedly have something to do with the people who raided my monk's village. Do I remember the quest? Not at all, but I do remember the Dungeon Master frequently changing or getting details wrong about the village and my character's past. I had to do things like remind him it was a small village, her father had been the blacksmith, etc. Not much had been set in stone prior to the game, and even those few details were not sacred. The game took us all the way to level 9, and even then I wasn't sure what the plot or the party really was. A lack of unity and cohesion eventually led to a TPK against some Gorgons, who turned Monk to stone after the rogue ran away and left the others to perish. Wait, aren't Gorgons... Yeah, CR5, how many Gorgons were you fighting? You TPK'd against Gorgons at level 9? Either the DM buffed the crap out of those Gorgons, made too many Gorgons, or y'all have a skill issue. All that crap with the Gorgons probably happened in pursuit of the quest that would have introduced Monk to her personal villains. Alas, it was already after the various ways my character's backstory had been completely changed, and now they live rent-free in my brain instead of memories of the story we were trying to actually play. I think maybe one day I'll try again with that player character of mine, maybe in a different TTRPG group. It sucks too, because if the Dungeon Master had just asked about that story, I mean, I would have been okay with it if I was playing that character. It's not a bad story when you hear the full breadth of it, but a royal plotline is, well, it's a lot. Look, I understand the appeal of surprise. There's nothing better than pulling off a successful plot twist on your D&D party. But it's not worth it to do a plot twist if it makes the game less fun for the players. I mean, this person wanted a small home life backstory. That's what they wanted. Lean into that. There are plenty of ways to create twists with that setup without needing to completely change the setup in the first place. And if you want to change the setup, at least pitch part of it. Tell them, hey, maybe there could be more to Monk's backstory. Maybe they could have connections to royal blood. And ask what they think. And if they think, no, that sounds like a bad idea, well then, you know it's a bad idea. This happened about a year ago on Discord, and this mainly involves me and the Dungeon Master. He asked me to join his 5th edition game because he wanted to show off his setting that he created. Overall, it was a pretty fun game for the most part, as it mainly was a plot about a secret organization plotting to take over the medieval world. We made it up to level 5, I believe, but there were 3 incidents that started to divide me away from the game. Firstly was an encounter with some villains of this arc, a martial duo with his DMPC turned traitor. At the time, we managed to get back up, there was a huge fight, we managed to win, but then they set off a huge ice bomb. This froze the surroundings and sent everyone fleeing. A final hurrah in a sense to get back at the party, and we retire. He then asked me, okay, everyone's getting cleaned up, knight, do you keep your armor on? To which I say, yeah, I'll take a bath in my plate armor. I played an elven knight at the time, think Warhammer Fantasy High Elf. Why was this important? Because I had made a deal with these secret society members a handful of sessions ago. One of them seduced him, but he managed to seduce her back with a natural 20, and they made a deal of mutual information gathering. I love how this romance is almost framed like a back and forth poker game. I mean, that might as well be how I see all romances. Thanks to my spell card, now our affection levels have reached their maximum degree. I have successfully seduced you. Why are you smiling? I won! You're in the palm of my hand, thanks to our maximized compatibility. 'Cause fool, you activated my trap card! What? That's right. It's a hickey. Now, your character is madly in love with mine. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. My character isn't into hickeys. You've maximized our compatibility stats. Now, you're into that stuff. That means I've successfully counter-seduced you! Well... Dude, what are you talking about? Well, I mean, that's kind of like just how I imagine, like, you guys flirt, how relationships work. No, definitely not. And also, do you even know what a hickey is? Shut up. Anyway, yeah, mutual information gathering deal. He would give society info on certain NPCs and locations. In return, he got to learn more about the secret society. The only catch was that she had to brand him with a mark of the society that would allow her to track him and signal him for meetups. It made sense, it was a fun plot point, and it felt good to do something a bit shady. That was until it was almost instantly revealed, even as I had on my full plate mail on. The Dungeon Master announced, as everyone bathes, you know society's brand on the knight right on his chest. Smartest snitch ever.
Is you
Showing off the sigil of
a criminal conspiracy? What is you thinking, man?
I felt betrayed. and upset that my betrayal was almost instantly revealed, but that was just the beginning because while we're resting at the inn, the DMPC and 2 guys we had fought and seen iced walk right in. They announced it was all a test and we passed with flying colors, and since this was milestone progression, this meant no loot, no XP, no nothing. We managed to pass our test and they told us the whereabouts of the society or something, I don't remember. At the time, I got really upset because for like 4 to 6 sessions, we were chasing these guys all around and all we had to show for it was a pat on the back. So I made up an excuse and just left the game. I felt awful dipping so suddenly, and that's on me for not discussing it with the Dungeon Master. However, our DM, despite being my friend at the time, was really hard to talk to, at least for me anyway, so I never brought it up with him and quietly vented to some other people. Issue 2 began with the Haunted Suite arc, which is also the arc I left at, which came right after the whole ice bomb thing, and began with us being chased into a haunted, multi-story inn and told we were playing a horror version of D&D with sanity and stress meters now. This caused our wizard to completely check out as they weren't a fan of horror and stayed silent for most of our sessions, and honestly, I wasn't a fan either. Again, no one brought it up with the Dungeon Master and we couldn't leave. As it was explained, we would die instantly to whatever was outside. So for the next few months, we essentially did a dungeon dive. Midway through, I did express I wanted to leave once the arc was done. I felt like I wasn't having fun anymore, and that might be for the best if you started looking for the basement. In the Haunted Mansion, what could go wrong? Although maybe that's the point. What better way to get out of a game? The Dungeon Master responded by saying he understood and continued with, well, this game was tailored specifically to you guys. No one else would be able to replace you if you left, so I'll just balance around it. This will be important to issue 3, but I felt bad for leaving the party down the tank, so I said I'll mull it over and see if the session's improved. Come around to the next session, I must preface this by saying that I have a type. I like strong women, like Karlak. I like big girls. The DM was aware of this, to the same extent my character also had that type. So when 3 muscular barbarian women suddenly come across the party and look to my knight for protection, I started feeling pandered to. I didn't want to make a fuss since I knew he was trying to be nice, but I wasn't too pleased. Issue 3 came at the end. We were looking to fight the final boss. It was dead, the inn was disappearing, and all was well. It looked like it was all over, and at the time I had decided I still wasn't having fun, and the sessions were tiring me out. So I had my mind set on leaving. I was going to let the Dungeon Master know so I could have a nice wrap-up, until my friend messages me, showing the Dungeon Master asking him to make a new character for the session because he wanted him to join. I was downright furious. I felt betrayed. I felt used to stay in the campaign longer, and now that was going to be the day I'm gonna leave the game, he suddenly decides to find my replacement? Yeah. You left the game. I don't understand the problem with the DM finding a replacement. Doesn't matter. You're out. I told my friend about it. He got pretty angry too because our Dungeon Master essentially always had him locked in as my backup and never told him. He had asked me before if I wanted to join a space D&D game as a second game, and I told him I wasn't interested. So he then instantly started doing this offer with my other friend and was now gonna just swap me out with him. We both felt pretty used, and when I joined the call for the session, I was cold, I was angry, I let them know that I was in a bad mood, and for the most part, I stayed back and let other people do the wrap-up. Thankfully, it all wrapped up well. My character was just retired, and that was that. But, doing something stupid and still angry, I brought up my frustrations about the DM's DMs. Mainly, how I felt betrayed about the line, how it was irreplaceable, and that he lied to me. But you want to leave! You want to leave! Like, okay, hypothetically, what do you want the DM to do? Just never get another player? Just DM with less people? Like, dude, you're not in the game anymore. I'm sorry, but you don't get to dictate who the DM lets in to replace you after you decide to leave. Not for bad reason, by the way. You had good reason to leave, but come on, man. Part of me still feels awful about how I handled this. I would like to avoid it again in the future, or figure out what I can improve about myself. If you have any advice that could be offered, it would be greatly appreciated. I want to preface this by saying that my friends have commented that I am one of the most unempathetic people when it comes to friend drama, so I'm sorry. I usually just don't get this kind of stuff. So please, correct me if I don't get it. But like I said earlier, the DM is not very good at their job. You had all of the rights in the world to leave, but after you leave, the DM does have a right to replace you with somebody else. I know it sucks if that person is your friend. I mean, I suppose that could be awkward, but at the same time, you're not in the game anymore. You can't have control over the group comp of a group you're not even in. I think the best thing that you can do here and the best lesson you can learn is if you leave a game, you leave. The real betrayal of the Dungeon Master would have been if they tried to manipulate you into staying in the group. But they obeyed your wishes. They moved on and opened up other options. I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter that they said you were irreplaceable that one time. Like, I get that that may be manipulative, but you're gone now. I think the best thing you could do is just move on. So at the time this happened, I was brand new at being a Dungeon Master and found myself just thrust into it. I was also still new to Dungeons & Dragons in general and only played a few sessions, so I was still learning the ins and outs. So I meet the guy who I'll call Bill for privacy's sake. The conversation turns to me playing D&D, and Bill got really excited, basically begged me to teach him and his partners how to play. I agreed. I got added to a group chat. First thing I did during the introductions was to make it clear I'm not experienced as a dungeon master or a player, so they shouldn't expect anything too amazing. I helped them to make their characters, I taught them the basics, then the first session happened, and it was fine. Nothing to share there. Now the second session, that's where Bill became the problem player. I was taking them through Sunless Citadel, as it was recommended for new players and DMs alike. They got into the Citadel proper, and Bill basically spent the entire session trying to find weed so his character can get high. Well, that's a goal.
Whoa, man, I think we're getting real messed up.
Don't we have an adventure to get to? Problem with the weed plans, they're in a castle with literally no foliage until much further in. Bill eventually becomes so disinterested in the session that he straight up walked over to one of his partners and started... What? Dude, I don't even know if I can read. I'll spare the details, but they got really into it. I'm just going to make up my own details. You know, maybe they were pleasuring each other by playing Super Smash Bros. Together. Great relationship there. That's what I choose to believe. I had no idea how to respond, but the other players just didn't react, as if it was a regular thing to happen within their relationship. I was also at their place, so I don't think I could just say, hey, you're no longer welcome at your table. After that session, I pulled Bill aside and asked why he did that, and he just straight up exploded into a rant about how horrible of a DM I was and how he wished I just let him have his way, but he was the only player dissatisfied. I mean, what? Was it because he, like, just satisfied the other guy? Sorry. I straight up told him that if he has an issue with me, discuss it like an adult, because I will not tolerate abuse, especially when he invited me to run the game for him and his partners. What finally pushed me to walk away from them is Jack throwing abuse at me in the group chat afterwards, then suddenly apologizing and showing screenshots of another conversation of people calling him narcissistic and self-centered and how they were tired of him putting everyone else down. Then he privately messaged me and asked if we could make out to make the daddy of the relationship jealous. Are the Alos okay? Also, what's with the daddy mommy thing? Okay? Why are you mixing up your parents and your love interests? Are you supposed to be doing that? Because it's not giving. And if it is giving, it's giving Oedipus. Anyway, we were trying to make the daddy jealous. I just told him, I'm not doing that. I told the group that I'll never DM for them again, at least while Jack is still around, and I walked away. Oh my god. Dude, I don't even know what to say. This is the last story I'm going to read before the holiday break, so... Oh my god. What a way to end it off. I don't even have an analysis. I just... Like, what do you expect from me, guys? What do you expect? Do you expect me to say, oh, you shouldn't do that? Because I don't think I have to. There's no lessons to take from this. There's just nothing. This is the worst story since the foot story. I'm putting my foot down, so to speak. This is... Yeah. Let's just go with the outro. Wow. Okay, so... Like I said earlier, we're taking a little break for the holidays. RPG Horror Stories will not be airing on Monday, but we will be returning on Wednesday. So next week, RPG Horror Stories will have a Wednesday episode and a Friday episode. Bit of a change, but I'm sure you guys will figure it out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, though, please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Tabletop Tavern Tips series, where you give advice for both DMs and players, old and new. It's linked in the cards, and while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down into the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment What was that? To let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description down below. Send your stories that way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have your stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell. I got this in the desert, some Africa. And it's covered in stuff like that.